Wow, okay. I have been going full throttle the past couple of weeks with videos. My output's been roughly the same, but the types of videos I'm making require more writing and a lot more editing, so I'm tired as hell. I wanted to take a beat from the more analysis stuff for a video here, so here I am with another indie outlook, just talking about an upcoming game, what's impressive about it, breaking down some info we have on it and how its gameplay works, and why you should be excited for it. If you watched my video about my favorite indies that popped up at E3, you know that Lost in Random was #1 on that bad boy. And since then, we've gotten a release date and it's fast approaching. September 10th marks the release date for this unique little game that has a sweet look that we don't typically see in video games, and perhaps even more importantly, a whole lot going on under the hood in the gameplay department. It's made by a team with a lot of passion, it's got a whole hodgepodge of fun ideas, and it's got a damn cool world. Let's talk about Lost in Random. In that E3 video I mentioned, I talked a little bit about how important a game's world is to its greatness. I don't think world and art design alone can carry a game that falls flat in so many other aspects, like We Happy Few for example, but when a game is good, I think the most effective way to make it great, hell, elite, is to give the player a cool world to explore or even just look at. It makes you feel like you've actually transported to a new place that has its own rules and you need to adapt to them. Lost in Random's world, then, is probably what excites me the most. You'll notice that the game's art style takes heavily from Tim Burton and Laika Studios films. Character models look vaguely plastic, almost akin to what you'd see with like a fake plastic tree. The buildings and railings and tiling on the floor beneath you are crooked and off-kilter. The NPCs are perfectly weird. You got a tall gimp suit lad with a little kid inside him. That sounded... Holy Jesus, that was a horrible sentence. You know what I mean. He unzips the end and there's like a kid. Oh yeah, no bro, I'm going to prison. You got this annoying fish dude with a bowler hat. You have this looming queen character design that feels like it's based off the queen in chess. Damn it, you got a living dice that just waddles around with you. I think sometimes we see all this weird stuff in a game or movie and take it for granted, but so much creativity goes into making all of this look so interesting and off-putting and ominous and goofy. I have high hopes for this world and I can't wait to explore it. I hope we get some fun dialogue. I did play a bit of Flipping Death, which was Zoink Studios' last game, but I was pretty swamped at the time with other stuff and I didn't get super far into that one. But what I played was goofy and dumb, which is awesome because I love dumb when it's intentionally dumb. So I have faith in this studio to give us some fun interactions amidst this story of family and evil queens and randomness ruling people's lives. I'm expecting to leave this game with a bunch of characters sticking in my mind for the foreseeable future. Blah blah blah, look, ooh, pretty German expressionism, that's pretty rare in a 3D game. Characters dark and gloomy. Shut up, nerd. Talk about what you actually do in the game. Okay, I get it. I over-explain world and visuals sometimes, alright? I'm sorry. Let's talk about some gameplay. Some people are a bit confused on how exactly the gameplay works, but it's not actually that difficult once you get down to it, alright? See, look. Even has a slingshot as a default weapon which you can use to smash objects that have coins in them or knock off energy crystals off of enemies. You can use these coins to buy cards from a vendor, and you can also get cards by completing quests. You can carry up to 15 cards in your hand at once. During battle, the crystals you shoot off enemies are consumed by Dicey, and once you have a certain amount, your cards will begin to be available to you in combat. The cards that show up are picked randomly, and up to 5 of them from your hand can be available here at any one time. Getting the amount of crystals it takes to get your first card to pop up also equates to the same amount of crystals you need to get to roll Dicey. So once they start popping up, you have the option to roll him, but you can also wait until you have more cards at your disposal. Once you decide to roll, time will freeze shortly, and your big player character piece will move the same amount of spaces as what comes up on Dicey. Oh, I didn't mention, there's a big player character piece, and your enemy encounters all take place on a big game board where the goal is usually to reach the other side. So you keep rolling and moving until you reach the other end, but each space on the board could have different effects like spawning more enemies or slowing enemies down. Much like some obstacles or buffs in a typical game board. But wait, you thought that was it? We haven't really talked about the cards yet, dude. The number Dicey lands on not only dictates how many spaces you move, but also how many tokens you have to spend on your cards. Different cards require a different amount of tokens to use, and these cards can be one of 5 different types. Weapon, damage, defense, hazard, and cheat. Weapon gives you a bow and arrow or a mace or a sword or something to flail away at enemies. Damage is a way to let off AoEs or send charging foes at people. Defense lets you protect yourself or heal. Hazard adds traps or friendly dudes who acquire crystals for you passively. And cheat can give you things like extra tokens or the ability to build up combos faster. You can also combine multiple cards together to get results like poison arrows or carving up enemies that you just pulled together. So basically, it's a card game, a third-person melee game, a board game, and a dice game. I don't see what's so complicated about this, dude. Seriously, it's as simple as it gets. Holy swashbuckling sarcasm, Batman. I think he might not be serious right now. This is one of the more complex combat systems I've seen from an action-adventure game period. There's so much to juggle here, but at the same time, while it seems pretty insane on paper, the more I think about it, the more I think they actually layered some of these components well enough for it to not be a hot mess once it reaches the player. The main system is getting energy, using it to roll a dice, and having the number it lands on dictate what cards you can use. And that, in and of itself, is a somewhat easy concept to get a grasp on, even with all the different card types. The card types are pretty easy to understand, and explaining to the player that the sword they just got is for slapping up enemies isn't exactly rocket science. Also, the game board aspect seems to be playing out in the background and is, again, on its own, not too difficult of a system to follow. There's a line between deep, interesting, thoughtful, and varied combat and random bullshit go. And with a studio who hasn't produced anything of this nature before, there is a chance that they fall into the not so ideal side of that line, but I think they spent a lot of time thinking this through and making sure everything worked together and didn't feel very disjointed. And if they pull this off, then there is a lot to love about what they're doing here. I have to commend them for trying this out in the first place, and I think there's a good chance that they can pull it off. And if they do, and it's as engaging as it seems it would be, I think this game could come out to some crazy reception. Very similar to what we saw in another EA Originals this year, It Takes Two. But maybe even more sudden this time, since Zoink is not as well known in the industry yet as Hazelight and, more specifically, Joseph Fares. The big linking factor with all of this obviously has to be story, and Lost in Random has a very interesting premise for that. The idea of a place where randomness is deemed fair and just and therefore dictates people's lives isn't an entirely new one, but this version seems quite fleshed out and gets weird with it. Randomness is really prevalent in card games and dice games and board games, that's often what they're based on, so to have arenas, companions, enemies, and character fates be shaped by dice and board game pieces is so smart. On top of that, this game is a personal story of trying to get back your sister after the randomness of this world took her away from you. And as I mentioned before, there's tons of opportunities to use side characters and interactions to develop the world and story outside of the main quest line. The game's got bosses, dark overlords, henchmen, dice enthusiasts, and chess pieces with some kind of dark essence inside of them, and has all the makings of a truly amazing and original title that could garner some widespread recognition. With how ballsy they're going, especially in the gameplay department, the game has plenty of areas where it could fail to live up to expectations. But its potential is so alluring, and if it can fulfill it, there's absolutely no doubt in my mind it'll be one of the best games this year. They seem like a really great studio, I wish them all the best, and I really hope they can meet these expectations. Subscribe if you're new here, guys, share your excitement with Zoink, show him some love, and I'll see you all next time. Peace.